And what's up? What's up? Welcome back. GC Live Wednesday episode of the show. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and then, of course, all the other podcast platforms after the fact. I'm Wes Mitchell. Joined now the triumphant return of Chris Clark.
Yes.
I want to say you look well rested, but I don't know. You look about like normal. So
that's a rough comment.
But no, I'm glad to have Chris back because I have rambled on for the last 2 days for an hour each about and I have no idea what I've even said. So I mean, sometimes it goes by fast, sometimes it goes by slow. So I know everybody's glad to hear from Chris and have him back. And we got everybody in the chat again coming in strong. The usual suspects are here. Chris, how's it feel, man? You glad to be back?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. It's been a busy day, catching up on everything. Good to hear everybody. Good to see everybody. And got some good family time during the bye week. Just took a couple days, and appreciate you hanging in there while I was gone. But it's good to be back. Ready to get back after it here on Wednesday. A Carolina football game on Saturday. So a lot to talk about, a lot to get to.
Yeah, plenty to talk about here, man. Of course, our show brought to you by Affordable Medical USA. Check them out at affordablemedicalusa.com. Give them a call, 803-926-1493. And they are home of the game day chair. So, Chris, I'm still waiting on us to get our own game day chair. But tell everybody about how they can get theirs for this final 5-game stretch of the season and beyond, though. I mean, you're going to have basketball games to watch. You're going to have Carolina baseball games to watch. I mean, NFL playoffs. It's a game day chair that extends beyond the scope of just South Carolina Gamecocks football.
That's right. It's just an awesome chair. It's an any sport game day chair. It's a Netflix chair. It's a posting on Gamecock Central from your laptop chair or your tablet if you would like. So, yeah, check those guys out. Numbers up there on the screen, 803-926-1493 for those of you who are watching on one of our streaming channels, affordablemedicalusa.com. What you want to search for there is the Maxi Comfort Cloud with Twilight. Huge, comfortable, roomy recliner that has a variety of positions that you can get to with just the push of a button. Super comfortable fabric. Check them out there. Or go to GamecockCentral.com, click on the GC Live front page story, or if you're on YouTube, in the description there, you can get a direct link to the Game Day Chair. They are our main sponsor. They are the primary reason that we do this show on a daily basis. So make sure you support them.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit more. I was going to say one sponsor. Actually, two. We'll have a little bit more later on our new sponsor. And then we're going to be out and about in the Columbia area later on this week. That's official, right?
It's officially official.
Yeah. So it's officially official. We're going to let you know about that a little bit later on, how you can come hang out with us on Friday, maybe a little happy hour, and actually check out a place that I've never been. So I'm excited about that. But all right, man. So Will Muschamp talks yesterday, of course. Players talk today. As I said, they're all tired of hearing my take on the game. I will say, to start it off, before I get your big picture take, players talk today because, they had yesterday off due to the election.
Yep.
Dude, you could have just posted the defensive guys. They could have just held up a sign for every question that said, stop the run. It kind of reminds me of, I think it was last year before the Florida game. And the previous year, South Carolina had given up like 1,000 yards rushing or something to Florida. I mean, it was a big number. You remember the second half, Florida ran all over South Carolina. And Muschamp, I think, had those shirts or signs made or something that was like, I gave up 300 yards rushing to Florida. Zach Pickens talking about it. And don't get me wrong, they were asked about it. But also as the game sort of goes along, or as the press conference sort of goes along, Pickens, Kier, J.C. Horn, they're all got to stop the run, got to stop the run. I mean, you can tell a lot of times these guys, Chris, they parrot what they're being told by the staff during the week. And there's no question in my mind that throughout the bye week, throughout this week, they've had it hammered into their brain. You have to stop the run better. And even J.C. Horn, he was like, hey, there is a technique to this, but we got to change our mindset, was what J.C. said. And he even said the mindset was not what it needed to be to stop the run against LSU. So I think this has become a matter of pride. Does that mean you're just going to go magically stop the run? Of course not. But does it mean you can see a little bit better showing and give yourself a chance? Potentially.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key in this game. I mean, look, you're going against an A&M team that we know with the way that Jimbo Fisher structures his offense, a lot of it's going to be predicated on let's try to run the football. Let's try to run a lot of play action off that. He'll use the tight end. He'll use the fullback in situations. I mean, in some ways, it's similar to Mike Bobo with that, and that's something that Will Muschamp's talked about. Philosophically, there's some similarities there. And then you have the added dimension of Kellen Mond can run. A lot of people, when we talk about the run game, they're going to talk about Isaiah Spiller and the matchup up front with the D-line versus Texas A&M's offensive line. That's great. That's going to be huge in this game. But you can't discount Kellen Mond being an extension of the run game, right? Even if it's in scramble situations. He's hurt South Carolina in all 15 games he's played against them over the course of his career. No, seriously, he's played 3, and it seems like a lot more. But he's hurt them extending plays and with some of his runs, whether he's ended up throwing the ball, whether he's ended up scrambling around. He's hurt them at times. And so that's going to be another aspect of this. But that's definitely starting point A, is stopping the run. And again, I'll go back to it. A lot of things that we've said, I feel like we could hold up a sign on this show at times with some of the things that we've said also, but until they change, we're going to keep saying them. This team has shown vulnerabilities in the run all year, even against Vanderbilt. You wouldn't know it looking at the box score, looking at the score line, even watching the game, really. But it was there. And when you play a team like LSU with a bigger offensive line, capable backs, despite their struggles the rest of the year, you can get exposed, and that's what happened. I think South Carolina defensively, whatever their mindset was going into that game, it wasn't good enough. I don't know if it's because of a freshman quarterback. Maybe they didn't believe LSU could whip them up front like that. Whatever it wasn't the right mindset, and they didn't play very well, and they got exposed because of it. So it's an area that you got to get fixed. You look at Isaiah Spiller this year. He's had some really good games. I mean, 117 against Vandy on just 8 carries. 174 against Florida in the upset win over the Gators, 114 against Mississippi State. He had 82 against Arkansas. Wasn't a phenomenal game, 3.9 a carry, but 82 yards. The only quality game he didn't have was against Alabama. He was 11 rushes for 25 yards. That was it. So it's going to be the starting point of the offense. You got to get A&M in 3rd and longs, which this team has struggled to do at times this year, especially against LSU. And then from there, you got to contain Mond.
Yeah, so, man, I think let's go back to Mond and sort of zoom in on him. I think it's always interesting when a new quarterback comes in. I remember Mond against South Carolina, true freshman. He's a guy that, is coming on, and this would have been what? So we're in 2020, so 2019, 2018, so 2017.
Yep.
Which you're right, dude. It seems like he's been there since at least 2010. But
he was Johnny Manziel's backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember Mond being the guys and for whatever reason, man, that play is singed into my brain where Brad Johnson had an open shot at him, and he just naturally made him miss and made a big play. And so I think, dude, when a new quarterback comes in at the time, so Kellen Mond, highly recruited guy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always this sort of the life of an SEC quarterback. It starts out, he's rated as a 6.1 on Rivals. That's the highest Rivals rating that you have. It's a true 5-star, number 21 overall prospect in the country, number 1 dual threat quarterback in the entire nation, according to Rivals, class of 2017. So instantly, and we see this at South Carolina, expectations are this guy's taking us to the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
And until we see it with the backup quarterbacks now, we see it, with Luke Doty. Until you've had a chance to lose the trust of a fan base, in a fan base's mind, all they're seeing are the possibilities. The wheels are turning. This guy's going to go win a Heisman and take us to a championship on the way. Well, then, as every quarterback does, quarterback makes a few mistakes. Fan base realizes, oh man, this guy's not perfect. He's not the second coming of Jesus Christ. It's what are we? Is this guy really a 5-star? And then ultimately, even the very best, some people turn on you. I remember people calling for Dylan Thompson in the middle of the Connor Shaw, in the height of the Connor Shaw run. Some people turn on you. And so for Mond, he is now actually truly a senior, although he could come back next year if he wanted.
He will.
Yeah, he will be a 5-year starter against South Carolina. But the thing is, man, I feel like with Mond, there's an expectation he was going to be this super flashy, big play guy, NFL draft pick down the road potentially. And then I think the expectations sort of slowly have fallen. But now I kind of feel like Chris, as a senior, he's sort of settled in to being comfortable being what he is and being comfortable playing within this offense. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, I know everybody always puts game manager on Colin Hill. Like game manager is this huge insult. I don't want to say game manager in the negative aspect because he can still run the football. But as far as what they're asking him to do right now, 101 of 156 passing for 1,244 yards. That's almost 65% completions, 12 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, has only taken 2 sacks this year, and has only rushed for 78 yards on just 28 carries with a long of 14. And like I said, man, they don't get sacked. So he's only lost 8 yards. It's not one of those things where, the sack yardage sometimes can really skew the rushing totals. Not the case here. So he's really sort of settled in to being the guy that's a point guard at quarterback, I feel like. Get the ball to Isaiah Spiller. Downhill running attack. Really good offensive line. Muschamp mentioned they returned 4 of the 5 starters. Receiving core that has multiple guys that are in that like 15 to 20 receptions range. It's not a Shi Smith offense where one guy is doing everything. Then throw in the fact they have an outstanding tight end who can block and help in the passing game. So I kind of feel like Mond has settled in to the point guard of this offense. He's not making a lot of mistakes. And for South Carolina, Chris, I know I'm going very long-winded on this, but for South Carolina, that's very scary because you're talking about a defense that A, is predicated on turnovers and red zone defense, and B, is predicated on getting teams in passing situations and getting to the quarterback so that they then force – you don't force a lot of turnovers without getting pressure on the quarterback is my belief. So he's not a guy that gets sacked a lot. Great running game. Even if you do get pressure on him, he's going to extend plays on you and keep them out of bad plays and keep them out of negative plays, I should say. On paper, everything I just said, it's like that plus that plus that plus that equals not a great matchup for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
That's right. You nailed it. It's scary facing, freshman Kellen Mond, which you weren't sure. It's a mixed bag that year, right? That Kellen Mond brought, and the inexperience, and he didn't play as well his freshman year in that game, but he made plays down the stretch, and we've seen him grow, like you said. So now he's a guy that he's smarter with the football. He's a better distributor, plays more within the offense, but also still can definitely hurt you with his legs, right? And so, like, if you think of the nightmare scenario, it's maybe some of what we saw against LSU with if A&M's running the ball effectively, that's a problem, number one. But then number two, and that's going to change how you call your defense, how you structure things like we saw against LSU. And then secondly, if you do get them in third and longer situations, not only do you have to worry about Kellen Mond just making a throw where maybe you don't get enough pressure and you give him a lot of time, now he can also scramble around, right, and make some plays for you. And so this A&M offense isn't even, they're missing Jamon Osborne, who was their top wideout, opted out before the season. They had two tight ends that were going to play roles for them. They're out. Weidermeyer's still in there. He's still really good. But I do think when you think of this A&M offense, we haven't even started on the defense, but offensively, Spiller and that O-line can cause you a lot of problems. But Kellen Mond, I think, has been the X factor in this game and could continue to be. I mean, that'll be the most important player both for A&M and for South Carolina in my mind, because we can talk about stopping the run a lot, and we should, and that'll be a huge key. But in 3rd and 7, if you're fortunate enough to get to 3rd and 7, can you get off the field? He's going to make it hard on you, So you look even freshman year, South Carolina at A&M, he had a good game. He's 19 for 27, 159 yards. Wasn't making a bunch of big plays. His longest pass was 26 yards. But he also rushed 16 times for 95 yards. And he got himself out of some trouble at times. He rushed the football at times and played well. You look at the 18 game in South Carolina, the one where A&M got up front, South Carolina came back. Rushing totals weren't as great then, 13 for 25, but he was efficient with the ball. He passed for 350 yards. He didn't turn the football over. That was very important. And then, last year, probably a little bit of a wash when we look at that game. South Carolina was so poor offensively. They couldn't move the ball at all. They actually played well on defense at the beginning of the game until they wore out. But last year, 20 of 33, 221 yards, a touchdown, and he ran 10 times for 47 yards. So I think, honestly, that first year game would be worse for South Carolina. If Kellen Mond's running 10 times for 95 yards, that's a bad result for the Gamecocks. It's going to be hard to win if he's getting loose like that.
Yeah, and I think for me, and Chandler here asked a great question on Facebook. Could what A&M does be similar to Findlay and LSU? I would say to an extent, yes. And you're talking about with a veteran guy at quarterback. For me, the scariest thing for South Carolina is I'm pulling up, and obviously the guy at SEC StatCat, outstanding job. And I rely on them, if I sort of want a big picture look at how a guy has performed so far this year. You look at Mond, man, and the thing about these stats is he'll go beyond your simple just like completion percentage, and he has what he calls an accuracy percentage. So what percentage of your throws are accurate? Mond, according to SEC StatCat, is second in the SEC behind just Mac Jones. 70.51% of his passes so far have been accurate. So to me, that your big fear for Carolina, they do play a lot of this sort of off-man coverage, and your big fear is that they're running the ball on 1st and 2nd down, and that they're getting into these 2nd and 3rd and short, plays where you can run it or throw it, and then you're just dinking and dunking, picking South Carolina apart with these short, accurate passes. And then once again, it becomes a game where it's all about, can South Carolina just outscore them? Or if you're lucky, it even becomes a game where you just have to force a lot of field goals. I think now we've seen, interestingly enough, it doesn't always, when you compare one game from one year, like year over year to the next, it doesn't always translate. But last year, A&M really was dominating that game, but it's 13-3 going to the fourth quarter because South Carolina forced some field goals. South Carolina was down, wasn't it 16-0?
That's right.
In Columbia.
18 games.
And yeah, and that was that 3 field goals that they forced to get to 16, or was there a missed extra point in that game? I think they forced a bunch of field goals in that game, for what I remember. So they have, for whatever reason, whether it means anything or not, been able to force field goals against A&M, and they've been able to hang in these games. I feel like A&M games, really the entire time Muschamp has been here. I'll even go back to the Sean Elliott game. You know, when Perry was the quarterback, Carolina has gone into these games every year as a sort of slight to intermediate underdog. Not a huge underdog, but not really like, razor thin line either. And every single game, South Carolina has found a way to hang in there, but never really been in a position to actually go win the game. Now, they were up 17-7. I guess that was Muschamp's first year. No, his second year. On the road.
Yep.
And really were in position to actually win that game. And A&M played really well down the stretch, and South Carolina couldn't move the ball late in the game. And then we all know what happened. But all these games, it's sort of like the programs, even though the cast of characters has changed, the actual way you sort of frame this game going in has kind of been the same every year, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's ended up being close games. Like you said, those don't because it's close or been close the past few years, that doesn't mean, okay, it's the fourth year of this game between these, these coaches, these particular teams that, hey, now you're going to get a 30-point margin. I mean, or it's going to be the same. You don't really know. What you do think about this game is that, and I thought this about LSU was totally wrong. You feel like it can be close. I think you feel like that because South Carolina does have the potential, I think, to be better offensively than we saw in 2017 for sure. That was not a very good, offensive football team when you think about that with some of the games that they had that year. 17 games, South Carolina, they scored 10 in the first half. They were up 10-7 at the half, scored a touchdown in the third quarter. That was it, 17 points. Last year, obviously, they were at the point in the season when they weren't doing anything offensively. So you look at those things and you say, well, what's different this year? You feel like they've got the potential to run the football better than they have and maybe be better offensively. Will they? We'll see. But I think some of the same concerns that Texas A&M is going to bring offensively are still there, right? Can you get off the field on third downs? The run game, offensive line, and then Kellen Mond, hurting you on third down. That to me is really, that's the same. And so if you can't force field goals, if you can't get off the field on third down, you're probably not going to win the game. You're exactly right. That's what South Carolina is going to have to do. I look at, back at that 17 game in terms of just what ended up happening there. Kellen Mond made some plays, they got a field goal in the third quarter. Then you look at when they went to make it 17-10, when they got into the third quarter to go tie it up, Kellen Mond had an 18-yard run. They had a 2nd and 17 at the South Carolina 44. Kellen Mond completes his longest pass of the game for 26 yards to get them down in business. He has a 9-yard run on 2nd and 8 down to the 7. So Kellen Mond ended up making.
All right, I think we lost Chris there. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So to his point, obviously with Mond, you're going to have to get some pressure on him. Bring Chris right back in. I don't know what happened there.
Dropped out for a second.
You want to continue your thought?
No, I don't know where I cut off there, but what I was saying is in that 17 game, because it is the same player, there is a little bit more of a pattern potentially, or some things that can happen, and that is Kellen Mond making you pay. And so in the third quarter, he helped engineer some things to where they were down, and then it's, I think, 17-7, like you said. They got a field goal, 17-10. You're still feeling okay if you're South Carolina. Then you got a punt. Then he starts extending drives, right? He has an 18-yard run to open the drive, Kellen Mond does. Then there's a 2nd and 18, 26-yard pass, which was, by the way, his longest of the game, to get them down to the South Carolina 18. Then a 9-yard run, right, to get them in business. I think South Carolina had a personal foul on that drive. They end up scoring. They tie it. Then they get one later. Kellen Mond ended up being the difference in that game because South Carolina had some chances to get him on the ground. They didn't. He made some plays with his legs. So the formula is the same for A&M offensively. Try to run the ball, let Kellen Mond extend plays, let him distribute the football. Don't make any mistakes offensively. And so South Carolina, that's the cycle that they're going to have to break. That's the case for any team, but we have a lot of film on Mond against South Carolina and other teams to know what he's capable of. So they're going to have to get him off rhythm, and that can be hard to do for a guy with his mobility.
Let's talk a little Carolina offense versus A&M defense. Man, I think just for me, this is just a very SEC defense for A&M. Like when I think of your typical SEC defense, some big dudes up front that are athletic, can get after the passer, some tough-nosed linebackers that have experience and rack up a bunch of tackles, a hard-hitting safety, and then athleticism across the board in the defensive backfield. And you sort of look and you start to say, all right, where are the holes? And what can you attack? I don't know if there's a ton of holes within this defense, but I will say, man, one thing I looked up, and this is entirely a statistical thing that I'm about to say. Like I don't know on the field the actual matchup athleticism-wise if this is going to translate. But one thing I did notice, man, when teams attack their tight ends in the passing game, if you look at PFF and sort of their grades and how they do in the different areas, pretty strong across the board. Like I said, they got like 3 or 4 guys that can get after you in the passing, pass rush department. So you got to worry about that. But Buddy Johnson, who is sort of their version of Ernest Jones, racks up tackles. I think he's right behind Ernest in tackles in the SEC this year. He's sort of their dude in the middle. Well, if you sort of dive in on PFF, man, this kid has been targeted. Basically, the receiver he's guarding that he's around has been targeted 22 times so far this year. And that receiver has a reception 20 of those 22 times. So that is a 90% completion rate, which already factors in. It still counts as a target even if the guy tight end drops the ball, So the fact that 90% of the balls, and it at that volume as well, 22 times in 5 games for 225 yards and for 2 touchdowns, and with 156 of those yards coming after the catch. I think you look, and maybe if you're South Carolina and the tight ends you have, it could be the potential for a big game for those guys. Because I think you're all Bobo. We know Bobo is always going to look, Chris, and say, "Where's my matchup? Do I have an advantage? Is there something I can find here that works to my advantage?" And to me, it does. The stat stuff, sometimes we get too involved in it, and it doesn't really translate like that. But that just was like a glaring, okay, maybe there is something there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you got to no doubt Mike Bobo will be looking at those matchups. Of course, when you look at South Carolina playing against any team, no matter the matchup, their bread and butter is going to need to be running the football, right? They need to be able to do that effectively. And they did against LSU when you look at 8 yards a carry, but the problem was defensively, they didn't do much of anything. LSU went up and down the field sort of at will, and that became an issue to where South Carolina couldn't afford to sputter any on offense. And this is not an offense that's going to go score on every drive at South Carolina, just to be realistic. And some of A&M's games this year, I totally agree with you. You can't pay attention to the stats because, like, you look at their game against Alabama, they lost, 52-24. They put up a lot of yards in that game. They possessed the ball longer than Alabama. They had more first downs than Alabama. The key there for Alabama is because, they did what they do against everybody. They're super explosive offensively in the pass game. They go and they score quickly. They have a bunch of big plays. South Carolina hasn't been able to dial up many of those. So unless they somehow just pull a game like that out, which would be fantastic for South Carolina, you're going to have to look at other areas like tight ends, like running the ball, like getting into third and manageables. If they're in 3rd and 7 all day against A&M, they've got some guys that can tee off on you, which is sort of what we saw against LSU, and that's not going to be a good matchup. But, going back to some of the statistical anomalies for A&M, even if you move beyond Alabama, what we saw last week with Arkansas, an Arkansas team that's looked improved this year. Arkansas wasn't very good on 3rd down, but they had more first downs than A&M. They had more total yards. Passing yards are fairly even. They had more rushing yards. I mean, Arkansas had 222 rushing yards, and the turnover margin was equal. There are no turnovers in that game. A&M was just, they were better on 3rd downs, and they were a little bit more explosive in the passing game, and that's what it came down to. So, I think for Carolina, they're going to have to find a way to manufacture some explosive plays. They're going to have to stay out of 3rd and long situations to open up the playbook possibilities. But to me, the key for this one, even moving to offense, because those things complement each other, Carolina's just going to have a much better defensive performance. And that's why we're going to spend so much time and already have talking about Mond and how you try to get A&M off the field offensively. The more you dive into this A&M team, the more concerning I think the matchups are, Wes, when you look at what they've done this year.
Yeah, like I said, man, you start adding all these things together, it equals a tough matchup. Now, that's why they play the games. I think it's not like this is some dominant A&M team right now. Not saying South Carolina's not going to hang around and make it a game. It's just can they find those plays? And in this season, obviously take away LSU, that game went off the rails for South Carolina. But most of these teams are within striking distance of each other. If you lined up all the SEC schools, obviously not Alabama, and then on the other end, not Vanderbilt. But if you lined up most of these schools and just threw them in there, I'd maybe Georgia or Florida is sort of above everybody else not named Alabama. But everybody else, you throw them in any given day, it's going to be within, I would say, a few plays of each other, where it's who's going to make those plays. The problem is there a path for South Carolina to make those plays on Saturday? Now, I did see some talk online that Mond traditionally, and the data is there. We just need to go look at it. Traditionally, as his time has gone on, has not been near as good on the road as he has been at home. You have the data that South Carolina under Will Muschamp is 4-0 coming off of a bye week. So they actually have done a really good job of cleaning up issues during the bye week. And I think at the very least, you're going to see an outstanding effort from South Carolina against the run defensively. I don't think Will Muschamp is going to accept anything less than that on Saturday, because like Zach Pickens said, at this point, it's sort of a matter of pride. You get knocked around the way they did last week. We've seen this in football. These are not chess pieces. It's not played on paper. They are human beings, and there is a value from having a full bye week to get ready for an opponent. And there's a value from sort of being knocked in the dirt a little bit, I think. And having your manhood questioned, for a couple weeks. So we'll see. Ultimately, it comes down to matchups and the best players and the strongest players and stuff like that. But it's something that matters as well. So we will see how all those things add up and result in the game on Saturday. But before we move forward, I do want to talk a little bit about, because we still, Chris, have people talking about the quarterback situation. I know you very smartly avoided all the Luke Doty interviews or Luke Doty rumors, I should say, by getting out of town. But yeah, you missed that on Sunday night and Monday morning. But before we get into that, let's tell everybody, Chris, about our new sponsor. Do you got some product there to show everybody?
I do have some products. So we're very excited that here on GC Live, Wes and I are partnering with DeadSoxy. And I've got some of their product right here. This is how it came shipped, Wes. Wes is getting his hands on these on probably Friday, right? I've got a batch of matching ones for you. This is how about 6 pairs of socks came in a really cool box, and then individually they're wrapped. DeadSoxy is the new standard in premium dress socks. Highest quality fabrics, buttery soft feel. I checked them out last night. Once I got them, I got back into town. They were waiting on me from FedEx. They also have this no-slip technology. So there's these silicone beads that are in the welt. Those of you who wear really any kind of socks, but especially like a dress sock, if you've been wearing them all day, they might slip up and down. You got to pull them up and down. It's really irritating. You won't find that with these. They're super soft, no slip. They've got no-show socks, right, that you can wear with like loafers, sneakers, or their boardroom line, which is dress socks. And for our listeners on the show, DeadSoxy is going to give you free money to check out the product. So $10 at checkout that you can use when you use our unique referral link through GC Live. You can go there. You'll automatically get $10 at checkout. They'll just ask for your email, and you can claim it when you use our checkout link. So I'll show you a couple of these real quick. They got these cool designs. They got all sorts of different ones. These are just some that they sent me. These are pretty colorful. If you like a little colorful vibe. And Wes just popped up the link there on YouTube and Periscope. Again, $10 free. These are the no-shows. These are really cool. These are my favorite. They just come like this. Again, a lot of different colors. They just sent me some various ones. So you see they're sort of ankle socks. These things are super cool. Real soft, real comfortable, and they don't slip up and down all the time. So no, they're not Clemson colors. They have some Clemson colors, I guess you could say, although they're not affiliated with those. But DeadSoxy, I'm also pretty excited to say they're going to have some stuff coming down the pipe soon I think Gamecock fans are going to like too. But for now, go check out their dress sock categories and use that link right there to get $10 at checkout. How's that sound, Wes?
Sorry, I'm ready to get mine. I will get mine Friday, and let's go ahead and knock it all out, man. On Friday, if y'all want to come hang out, maybe have a little drink and see some of our friends. Where we're going to be at on Friday afternoon, Friday happy hour, Chris.
Yeah, so a Friday, this has been in the works for a while. A Friday happy hour edition of GC Live at Angry Fish Brewing Company. If you've never been there, you've made a mistake. But you can remedy that by coming out at about 4:30 to 5:30. Angry Fish Brewing Company, Kenny and the crew over there do an outstanding job. They absolutely love their brews. They know a ton about it if you ever get a chance to chat with them. And it is really, really good stuff. I can tell you for sure. So make sure you check those guys out. They're at 106 Fabrister Lane in Lexington. You just go down the little road, and they're right back in Unit C. 4:30 to 5:30, Wes will be out, and I will be out there broadcasting live from Angry Fish Brewing Company. And they're also going to have their food truck out there. Probably won't be ready during happy hour, but come for happy hour. Stay for Angry Eats, which is their food truck, and make sure you check those guys out. Guys, seeing some comments about Clemson colors, not Clemson colors, all right, because the lighting when I'm putting it up against the thing here is a little off. These are much more copper and blue. So sorry if you don't like that, but guess what? They got other colors too with DeadSoxy. You need to go check it out. Don't get too offended. It's all good, all right?
Oh man,
Yeah.
dude, you set some people off. Got RJ puking over here.
Man, I'll tell you what, you guys are going to be, I think, very happy in the near future with some of the stuff that DeadSoxy's coming out with that would be, I guess you could say, a little bit more geared to Carolina fans. But they got all sorts of colors, different types of socks. They got women's socks too, so check some things out for your wife if you would like to see, or direct her to that. Make sure you use your $10 at checkout. But yeah, so really exciting stuff. DeadSoxy on board with us. Make sure you check those guys out. And then Angry Fish this Friday, happy hour with Wes and I, 4:30 to 5:30 or so, and you can stay as late as you want, obviously.
Yeah, maybe we can give something away, man. And if you want to see those socks in person, Chris will prove at Angry Fish that they are not Clemson colors. Anyway, all right, let's get back to the game. Quarterback position, dude. the reaction. So Muschamp got asked, of course, on Tuesday about who's going to be the starter, and is Colin Hill your starter? Yes, just like yes. Which we knew. The rumor started, and I think, man, so the anatomy of the message board Twitter rumor in the year that is 2020 is pretty interesting. And I've kind of gotten to the point, I think, not always, but I can kind of trace down where some of these things start. And it's funny, it's kind of like a game of telephone, because I think, because I've heard it too, it's sort of floating around out there. I think there's a good chance Luke Doty gets some more snaps in the next couple weeks at quarterback. We saw, the little flash of brilliance there against LSU. You see the talent. And so I think it sort of started floating around from legitimate places. Hey, there's, Luke Doty's going to get some more opportunities. And then I think because of like the game of telephone, it starts out, hey, Luke Doty, he's going to play on Saturday at quarterback. And then I think that gets turned into, hey, man, did you see Luke Doty's playing? And then it turns into Luke Doty might start. And then it turns into Luke Doty is going to start. Right. And now because a lot of times people are talking to the same people. So it's, hey, I heard this from two different people that Luke Doty is starting at quarterback. And well, it's because those two people heard it from their same original spot, or somebody that heard it down the line from that same person. So it sort of just snowballs. And a lot of times there's some truthful element to it, but just not to the extent that the rumor actually gets going. So I do think that, again, Luke is going to play more, I think, down the stretch. We will see if it plays out that way. We'll see if I'm right. But we had somebody else, let's see, I'm going to credit them. Daniel asked about the quarterback position again. He says, why is our 5-star quarterback not playing? First of all, South Carolina does not have a true 5-star quarterback on their roster right now. He says Hill has been okay, just an okay system quarterback, not a game changer, like highly recruited Helinski or Doty should be. So, Chris, I talked a ton about QB on Monday, talked about a little bit more yesterday. So I'll just open it up to you, man. Your thoughts on Hill's play so far and sort of the quarterback position moving forward.
So I would agree that Colin Hill has not made a bunch of game-changing plays, in that we haven't seen a ton of explosive plays in this offense, which I don't know that we really anticipated because of the lack of explosive playmaking at receiver. If you're going to be explosive in the passing game, you typically need explosion at receiver. South Carolina doesn't have as much of that. We saw more of it from Colin Hill at Colorado State. He actually had some NFL wideouts. We saw more of it. I would say he's made some game-changing plays sort of in a reverse type of way by taking care of the football for the most part, right? That's important for this offense. We always talk about such low margins for this offense. This is not an offense that's good enough or was expected to be good enough in year one of the Bobo era to come out and, go 3 and out a bunch and be able to get into 3rd and 9 a bunch. So we always talk with Colin Hill in terms of this trade-off, the trade-off of being safe, being able to get South Carolina in the correct run looks against particular defenses or change out of bad plays, which again, for this offense shouldn't be discounted. And you have to measure that against a lack of mobility, a pocket presence that has not really been as good. We saw that against LSU a lot where I think he held the ball too long, hesitated, took some sacks that South Carolina could not afford, right? So I do understand that trade-off. I do understand the want to see better quarterback play because you're going to see that no matter who is in there. I mean, Wes just mentioned earlier, Connor Shaw, best quarterback in Gamecock history, and people are clamoring for the next guy off the bench because of whatever may happen. He goes 3 and out on a drive or whatever it may be. So I understand that. I also understand that Ryan Helinski is someone that South Carolina fans look at and they say this guy was a 4-star. He's way more highly recruited. They think about what he did, say, against Alabama last year. They think about that and sort of project on that. But look, Will Muschamp knows this is an important year. Mike Bobo does too. So I guess the place I go with that, and I am getting long-winded, but there's a lot to unpack here. If South Carolina believed Ryan Helinski was better based on what they saw in preseason, where they're not just saying, let's see, Colin Hill knows Mike Bobo, so we'll just pick him, like they're just picking it out of a hat. They do chart production in scrimmages. They do chart production in a variety of different metrics, and they continue looking at it during preseason and in the game. If they felt like Helinski was better, I would think they would play him, right? I do understand people saying, well, Will Muschamp doesn't change the quarterbacks as much as Steve Spurrier or whatever. He did make some changes in his first year, 2016. He goes from Perry Orth to Brandon McElwain. We saw Jake Bentley finally get to take over. They moved the team forward. They did that. Could that happen at some point, whether it's this year, next year? I mean, maybe so. But there's just a lot to weigh out. Luke Doty is a guy who's a tremendous talent. I think he's got a chance to be really good, and he's obviously brings a complete different dimension with his ability to run the ball. He's not as ahead as Ryan and Luke in terms of throwing the football because he's not as experienced as those guys, right? So it totally makes sense. So I understand the need to get better. If they're going to get better, somebody, whoever it is, has to help create some more explosive plays, has to be able to get rid of the ball quicker, whether that's scrambling out, whether that's getting rid of it in the pocket. I do understand it, but that it doesn't mean that you automatically have an option that's dramatically better on the bench, if that makes sense.
Well, and so Trey says I'd rather lose being aggressive than lose being safe. I mean, everybody always wants more aggressiveness until you get aggressive and throw an interception, and then the second your quarterback throws an interception, everybody turns on him. So it's easy to say that now. And there's different types of aggressiveness. Don't get me wrong. Are we talking about aggressiveness like going for it on 4th down? I would rather South Carolina. I believe they should go for it on more 4th downs personally. I think generally teams that go for it on 4th down, it works out in their favor. And I think the analytics actually sort of bear that out. But if you're talking about aggressiveness, every quarterback, we had Perry on last week, Perry Orth. Every quarterback is walking this line between should I throw this pass or not? And it's not an easy line to walk. So being uber aggressive as a quarterback in making those decisions is not, you don't want the guy that's too aggressive. Now, do you want the guy who's just throwing drop down pass after drop down pass? You don't want that either. It has to be a happy medium. And the problem is that line is ever moving because it's affected by your offensive line versus their defensive line. It's affected by your receivers and if they can get open and catch the football or not. It's frankly affected by if you trust your wide receiver. If you have Alshon Jeffrey and it's 3rd and long, throw the ball up.
Let it rip.
Yeah, if you don't, maybe it's different. So I think it's not as simple. I get what Trey is saying, but it's not as simple as just I'd rather be aggressive. Not everybody. I love aggressiveness, especially when you're more talented than the other team, because you can sort of enforce your will on a team. But when you're talking about a low, like you talked about, Chris, a low margin for error team, the second South Carolina, the pick six, everybody is crucifying Hill for the pick six. And it was a bad play from, I would say, both QB and receiver. I think it's both. But everybody wants aggressiveness until that aggressiveness gets you a pick six, and then everybody's ready to take you out of the game. So, let's be honest about that. Daniel says they were 5 stars at one point before they committed to South Carolina. I hate this narrative. Not true. Rivals never had Luke Doty as a 5-star. Rivals never had Ryan Helinski as a 5-star. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. I was making. I know they didn't have Doty, and I didn't think they had Helinski either. Yeah. So this
Helinski
narrative
actually moved up over time.
So did Luke. Luke.
Those guys both moved up after they committed. Right.
See, and I this is why we live. I'm hesitant, but we live in an era when people just say stuff, and it doesn't even have to be true, and then it just gets spread as if it's true because other people say it over and over enough. Have guys that are committed to South Carolina moved down before? Absolutely. Not saying they haven't, but to just blindly say, oh, they were 5 stars and they moved down. It's not true. It's just not true.
So the other flip side of it is, guys that we see in recruiting a lot, the notion that if a guy is a really good player, he should be a 5-star. Well, a 5-star, I remember that about Pharaoh Cooper. That was a big one. Pharaoh started out as a 2-star, ended up being a 4, which was a good call and arguably could have been much higher. But a lot of people said, well, Pharaoh should have been a 5-star because he was really, really good at South Carolina. That's fine. But 5-star is a first-round pick. There's only 25 to 35 of them a year in the country. So you're talking about a guy that you expect to go, probably be an All-American, start from day one, be an All-American, go 3 and out, go in the first round of the NFL draft. And that wasn't Pharaoh, just to use him as an example. Was he really, really good? Yes. But so is a 4-star. If you're a 4-star high school football prospect, you're in the top, I don't have the exact percent, but you're in the top 5% conservatively of all football players in the entire world. So that's pretty good, right? It's really good.
Yeah, you're a stud, period. So, let's see. We got some good, not a lot of questions today, but some good comments. Let's see. Yeah, I agree with that. Beham says, can we still pass it to Scotty Spurrier in the corner of the end zone on a trick play like in the spring game? No one will see that coming. So I don't think you'd get away with that, but at this point, maybe it's worth trying.
I think it is worth trying. The SEC officials haven't seen much this year, so they might just.
Hey, so
I'm sorry, we didn't see it, guys, and they might even replay it.
Yeah, all right. We've kept this to football only. But did you see the Saturday Down South tweet? I know y'all had to have seen the Saturday Down South tweet about no matter who wins the election, I just hope that the @SEC officiating Twitter account is not the one reviewing the results.
Brutal.
Yeah, brutal but true.
Yeah.
Funny but true.
Yeah.
So anyway, y'all got any questions? We got about 5 minutes left. What is on your mind? So we need to get an A&M person to come on later in the week.
Yeah. We're gonna effort. You said we need one?
Yeah, we need to get one.
Wes and I are just, I mean, we're to the portion of the show where we're just making our plans on the show and openly discussing policies and what we're going to do. No, we need to effort getting Mark Passwaters on. That's on my list, my long catch up list as I come back into town. But I feel fairly certain he would be more than willing to come on from AggieYell.com and chat with us about the Aggies. So we'll try to make that happen on. We need to do it tomorrow, I guess, Wes, or we can maybe effort it on Friday, and he can join us virtually at Angry Fish in Lexington.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. He will not be able to have an Angry Fish beer virtually, so
he will not.
He will probably be upset about that. But if you come out, you can have one with us, and that will be fun. So, all right, y'all. I'm not really seeing any questions. Chris, what's your? I won't say final thoughts on the matchup, but I did. I think it was interesting going back to our one little sort of newsy thing this week is just listening to the guys talk today. Helinski getting to talk, I think was interesting. You don't always see that from a backup quarterback. Handled all the questions very well, I thought. And then Hill, talking about sort of his focus has been on timing with the receivers and getting the ball out a little bit quicker. And dude, so I kind of have a question. It's a comment, but it's in the form of a question. And so when I tweeted on Tuesday that Muschamp said Colin Hill was going to start, instantly there was this response. There's this backlash where people were like, "What? Why is Colin Hill still the quarterback?" Or people were saying, "Well, South Carolina's going to lose." Blah blah blah. And so I understand Colin is a grad transfer. He's an upperclassman. So there is this sort of sense that maybe he is what he is, as far as can he get better. But it's kind of interesting because he's a grad transfer. I feel like he has not been afforded that kind of honeymoon period where you give a quarterback sort of that little window to sort of figure things out. Now, you may say, I see both sides of this argument. You may say, well, this is an upperclassman. He's been in this offense. He is what he is. But there were people going off on Twitter midway through the first half of the Tennessee game. Mm-hmm. Why is Colin Hill at quarterback? So my question / comment is it really that crazy to think, okay, maybe Colin Hill with a little bit of time under his belt against SEC defensive linemen can adjust and say, hey, my clock's got to be a little faster. I got to get the ball out a little bit quicker. There's a very quick sort of opportunity when I drop back, and even when guys are blocked, that's not going to last because that sort of, I talked about that sort of second wave against LSU where there's an initial, Carolina has the guy blocked, but they aren't able to keep LSU's defensive lineman engaged. They disengage from the block, and then boom, Hill is on the ground. So are we really to think that Hill just is what he is? Or even as an upperclassman, who I will say, as old as he is, has had his playing time consistently derailed by injury every time he's gotten opportunities. I don't think it's completely far-fetched to say that the guy can get better. There's always opportunities to improve. And one thing Hill's talked about is having that clock go off where either you throw the ball away or you just get forward. And it's not going to be a 10-yard run most of the time, but just getting forward, getting back to the line of scrimmage, negating that big negative play can really obviously be big for an offense that is predicated on running the football. So I feel like we as a collective, not us, but as the people that follow Carolina football, have been very, very quick to jump on Colin Hill from a negative standpoint. And a lot of that is because Ryan Helinski started last year, was highly recruited and was not able to win the job this year.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is not far-fetched, I wouldn't say. I think it is an age thing, it's an experience thing, and I think we talk about that experience so much that it's easy to think, okay, Colin Hill is a grad, he's a senior, so therefore he's played in 45 games. But he hasn't. He's played in, I think, 19 or 20 before he got to Carolina. So he's basically a sophomore in experience, end of sophomore year, going into junior year, pretty much, if not even that really going in. And none of this I'm saying is an excuse. Like, oh, Colin Hill by the end of the year is going to be a Heisman contender. I'm not saying that at all. But what you're saying has validity in that this is not a senior with 40 games under his belt who's done as a finished product. He's also in a new setting. He's not playing Fresno State anymore. Even the worst SEC defenses are going to feature some guys. I mean, everybody in this league just about is going to have pass rushers, and they get to you in a hurry. So you do have to adjust for that. You're playing with completely new receivers. You're not throwing to Warren Jackson and Trey McBride anymore and all these guys. Now you're playing with new receivers, and you've got some questions there too. And so while the offense is the same, while he has he came into Carolina having thrown, I think, 400 passes in this offense and played 19 or 20 games. That's not 40 games, and so there is some room for him to get better. And he is a guy who's studious and watches film and can see those things and talk to Mike Bobo about them. They do have a good relationship and a good sort of coach-player dynamic. And so if he improves in that area, because that's been the main complaint, right? There's been two main complaints. Not mobile, which isn't going to change. It's just not. So that's something you have to know. But you also have to know that the two main complaints maybe can get better. Not pushing the ball downfield enough. We've talked about some of the limitations that are still going to be there no matter what, taking Hill even out of the equation. And number two, getting rid of the ball faster, not running into sacks, not holding on to the ball too long. Can those get better? If they can, then it's going to help the offense, and Colin Hill will play better.
Yep. So we'll see. And again, I purposely phrase that as a question because if I sit there and just say it, it does sound like an excuse. And I know that's the reaction from some people, but I think too many times we think of these things as being static. And if anything, this team and this sport should tell us that it's not static at all. You can play really well one week and you can get beat the next. And is Colin Hill more of what we've seen in his better moments? Or is Colin Hill more of what we've seen, against LSU when things did sort of go off the rails? Usually probably falls somewhere in the middle, but we'll find out with a full year of, I don't think, I agree with the notion of playing Doty some more just to get another playmaker on the field. But to make a full wholesale quarterback change, most coaches, and I talked about this yesterday, Chris, and somebody else, I think it was RJ. Forgive me if I got the wrong person, but somebody else said Steve Spurrier looked at the quarterback position very different than most. He treated it just like any other position nearly, whereas most coaches are very hesitant to just switch a guy out because of locker room sort of repercussions of doing that. If you pull Hill, that really sort of means you just don't think he's the guy. Now Spurrier would pull a guy, and it was sort of known going in. If Spurrier pulls a quarterback, he's probably going to get another chance. He's only out until the next guy messes up.
Right.
I feel like most coaches sort of look like this is the leader of my team. And once I sort of almost undermine that, it kind of means it's the next guy's chance to be the leader. And I don't think, I think a lot would have to change for the staff to feel like that change was needed. So that's just my take. Now, if Hill goes out and does not play well against A&M, I think there's a worry from the fan base, Chris, that they will be completely hesitant to ever make a change. If Hill does not play well, I 100% think they will ultimately make a change. I just don't think we're there yet based on one football game.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And because really the LSU game's the one that you could point to and say that wasn't good enough. But we can also look at it and say, well, the defense is the big. That's what I've been more surprised about. Does the quarterback play need to get better? Yeah. The offense need to get better. Yeah. But the position that people should be putting even more energy towards is the defense, right? And that's the one that's going to be really the focal point on Saturday. They're going to be the one that everybody should be looking at is this Gamecock defense. So they have to score points, yeah, for sure. But if they can't stop anybody like they did against LSU, that type of performance, it's not going to matter. This offense ain't going to light up the scoreboard regardless. They're not going to go out and score 35 every game. If they let the opponent do that every game for the rest of the 5 games that remain in this season, they're not going to win any games. That's, I mean, just call it like it is, frankly, bluntly, whatever it may be. So, but no, I'm with you. I mean, quarterback position's got to get better. There's also, I think, this notion out there about Steve Spurrier that he played 4 quarterbacks a game. He just yanked you got to throw an incomplete pass, get out. No, I'm not. And that wasn't always the case either. Did he change them and do some things, whether it was at Florida or at South Carolina, a little differently than most? Yes, he did. Now, that didn't always, I will say, didn't always work out well either, even though they put up, if you could take Spurrier's offense and, in heyday of South Carolina or Florida, you take that all the time. But the 2 quarterback thing or changing all the time, like it sounds good, but you don't do it just to do it. Like you do still look at what's going on in practice, what each guy's skill set is. People love to say, because I've heard it in sort of customer service on our site, don't make change for change's sake. And that's sort of what you're doing if it's not the best move behind the scenes,
Yeah, if the opposing team's punter plays as many snaps in the game as Chris and I, then not a good sign. Yeah, you want that punter to get a workout. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess technically, last game for Carolina, the opposing punter did not get much work. And frankly, the Auburn punter didn't get a whole lot of work either because it was more interceptions and field goals. So, all right, y'all, that's going to be it for today. Chris and I will be back tomorrow afternoon. Appreciate the time. Appreciate everybody hanging in there. Enjoyed it as always. And Craig asked what our thoughts are on Georgia, Florida. Maybe we'll hit on that tomorrow or Friday. Talk about some of the other games in the league. Appreciate Affordable Medical USA making the show possible. Appreciate our new sponsor, DeadSoxy. Appreciate Angry Fish. We'll be there on Friday. And of course, go check out that watch party for the Texas A&M game at Market on Main, downtown Columbia on Saturday night as well. For Chris, I'm Wes. We'll see y'all tomorrow.